to saving this country, you are either all in or you're in the way. Whatever you do, whatever decision you make, don't do it halfway. We need you to be the leaders in this country. You are the future. You cannot afford to leave here and go home and go right back to the same life that you had before you came this weekend. This is a weekend that changes lives. Hello, everybody. Oh, now you're my favorite. I've got a favorite already. How are we doing? Good. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for letting me come and visit with you a little bit today. This is going to be a casual conversation, and then I'm going to take some questions. So if you guys have some questions for me, that'd be great. But I just wanted to have a little bit of a conversation about the last year, because we have seen unprecedented attacks on our freedoms in this country this year. We have seen people come after our freedom of speech. If the media and the leftists don't like what we say, you get banned, you get blacklisted, you get silenced. If you get your freedom of religion has been challenged because people have been told they can't go to church anymore, and if they go to church, then they can't sing. And then we've seen our freedom of assembly be threatened as well. People are actually being told in some states who they can spend time with, how many people they can spend time with, and that freedom as well is being threatened. What I wanted to tell all of you today is that that isn't happening in South Dakota. And I think if we were going to be real honest today, most of you in this room did not know who I was probably 8 or 9 months ago. The reason that you know who I am today is because the liberals have been busy kicking me in the head for all of the decisions that I've been making in South Dakota, for my people. They've been saying that I've been reckless, irresponsible. But I want you to know that my people are happy. They're happy because I trusted them. So I think you know a little bit of my story. I'm going to tell you some of the decisions that I've made this last year. But I think for you to understand those decisions, you need to understand a little bit about me, myself, as well. Ever since I was a little girl, you know, I've told you this before, I mentioned it last year, I just wanted to be a farmer. I wanted to grow up and be a farmer and a rancher with my dad. It was my favorite thing to do. I grew up with a dad that was tough. He was a cowboy. He woke us up every day by yelling up the stairs, "Get up, more people die in bed than anywhere else." We were always burning daylight, had to be in a hurry. Everywhere we went, we just worked all the time. But that was a remarkable way to grow up. When I was in college, my dad was killed in an accident on our farm. And it was a tragedy for us. He was 49 years old at the time, and it devastated our family. My sister was living in Georgia. My older brother was in Oklahoma. My younger brother was still in high school. So I ended up quitting college and coming home and taking over the business. We had a very large farming operation. We also had a commercial cow-calf operation, feedlots. We had several different businesses. And it was about 6 weeks after my dad passed away that I got a letter in the mail from the IRS that said we owed death taxes. So we owed estate taxes, and like a lot of small businesses in South Dakota and across the country, you know, we had land, we had machinery, we had cattle and assets, but we didn't have money in the bank. And so I could not believe that our family would have a tragedy, and then all of a sudden the federal government would threaten to take away our small business too. So people ask me all the time how I got involved in government and politics, and it was because of that. It made me angry, and I decided I needed to start showing up. And that is exactly what you're doing here today too, as well. You are here, you are showing up because you care. So my whole background is business. People talk to me about running for office. I served in the legislature, ran for Congress in 2010, and I spent 8 years in Washington, D.C., being the one representative from the state of South Dakota in the House. What I did, though, when I was there, I was thrilled that President Trump was there because we could do some big things. I got to work with him on tax reform. I got to work with him on getting rid of regulations that were killing our businesses. But I started to look at what governors can do. Governors are CEOs. Governors get to make decisions that impact people's lives each and every day. I decided to run for governor of South Dakota because I really believed that South Dakota could be an example to the nation. I know we're small. We don't have very many people in our state. But I also believe that because we were small, we could do things that other states couldn't do. That we could be a pilot project for a lot of the conservative reforms that we all talk about. And then we could prove that they work and what we believe. And as Republicans, as conservatives, really creates opportunity, and it would be a testimony to the rest of the nation. I had no idea that my opportunity to show that South Dakota could be an example to the nation would come through a pandemic. But it did. And so I'm just going to tell you, I did the same thing every other governor in this country did. Back in January, when we started to learn about this virus, I listened to the scientists. I talked to epidemiologists. I was visiting with all kinds of doctors and healthcare professionals and finding out and learning about it. I opened an emergency operations center in January. In March, on the 10th of March, we got our first virus cases in the state of South Dakota. Now, I think the only thing that I did was different from the rest of the governors was that I took it a step farther. I also met with my general counsel. I also met with constitutional attorneys and experts because I wanted to know what my authorities were as governor, what I could do, but I also wanted to know what authority I didn't have. And so that, I think, is why we made that's why we made such different decisions in South Dakota. For instance, we never once closed a single business in our state. In fact, I didn't even define what an essential business was because the government and governors don't have the authority to tell you that your business isn't essential. I never issued a shelter in place. We've never mandated any masks. What I told my people is I said, I'm going to give you all the information that I have. I'm going to tell you everything that I know. But then I'm going to trust you. I'm going to let you use personal responsibility to make the best decisions to protect your family's health. And then I'm also going to give you the flexibility to keep your business open, to take care of your customers and your employees, and keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. You know, and our people are happy. They're doing incredibly well. We have done and gotten through this. Dr. Fauci told me I would have 10,000 people in the hospital on my worst day. The highest rate that we've had today is about 400. The highest rate we had was about 600. So completely wrong. And he was wrong over and over and over and over again. But this is what we did. I told the folks in our state that we are never going to talk about how many positive cases we have of COVID-19 because the science of the virus tells us that we can't stop it. We can slow it down and we can protect people who are vulnerable. But it doesn't matter how many people catch the virus. What happens is how many people are in the hospital and our ability to take care of them. So every day when I held press conferences, we talked about how many people we had in the hospital and what our capacity was and how we could take care of them. And that kept them focused on making sure they knew what the goals were, what we needed to do as a state, and what we needed to do to take care of our families. People respected that, they understood that, and we never even got close to filling our hospitals' beds, much less even getting strapped with not being able to take care of people. So here's the story. While we have an incredible amount of people that have gone through hard times, we've lost people. I lost dear friends and family members. But what I will tell you also is that people have appreciated the opportunity to do the right things for their families and for their businesses. They've come together, they're unified, they love each other. We are one of the few states in the nation that ended our year with a budget surplus. We have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the nation, I think third from the bottom at 3.5%. I am the only governor, the only state that turned down when the president gave us the flexibility to keep the extended unemployment benefits at the higher level. I said to the president, thank you for the flexibility, Mr. President, but we don't need it. And what was interesting is that as soon as I said we weren't going to continue those extended elevated benefits, we cut our unemployment claims in half, which means that people that could go back to work said, okay, now it's time to go back to work, and they did. Now, our budget in South Dakota is doing very well. Tourism is our number 2 industry. It's at 148% of normal. I don't know if you've seen our commercials on TV talking about South Dakota. Have you seen any of the commercials that have been up talking about that? We've hosted some big events. We had the July 3rd event at Mount Rushmore that the president was there for, celebrating our independence. We had the Sturgis motorcycle bike rally, which you probably heard about. They said it was going to be a super spreader event, and we have just a couple hundred cases that came out of 500,000 people gathering together celebrating freedom in the state of South Dakota in August. We had the first spectator-attended professional sporting event in the state of South Dakota and the first PGA tournament that had spectators at it this year. So we have proven that you can do events, you can have people join together, be together, and do it safely and still continue on and be successful. Most of the governors in this country will stand up in front of their legislatures and give budget addresses and will deliver bad news. Some states are going to be raising taxes. Some will do more bonding authority to cover debts. We have many of them that will be making cuts. Our budget proposal that I put forward to my legislature last week is that we have more money than we ever expected, and I want to put it into reserves and into trust funds and into infrastructure to make sure we're making wise decisions to prepare South Dakota for the future. So there's a couple of things that I learned, and then I'm going to take some questions. What I learned was that I was shocked by how the media will use fear to promote their agenda, how they were willing to take one tidbit and twist it and use it to scare people to control them, and that nobody makes a good decision when they're making a decision out of emotion, anger, or fear. But they did it on purpose, and they did it to make sure that they were pushing an agenda that is bad and will destroy this country. So the one thing that I want to remind you is that America is not about fear. And America never has been about fear. America is about hope and a future and the opportunities that we have in front of us. We will go out of here, and we have plenty of opportunities to talk about what we're against. But I want to ask you that when you go out and you're talking to people about what we believe, what you believe as conservatives, listen, in South Dakota, all we really did is we did the Republican platform. We did what conservatives always say they believe. We just actually did it. And now we're creating opportunities like you wouldn't believe. We are moving people to South Dakota right now. My real estate market is going crazy. I could triple the size of my economic development department right now, and I couldn't answer the phone for all the businesses and the companies that are moving to our state. Now, the governor of Minnesota, do you know Governor Walz in Minnesota? Anybody here? Well, he in particular, in a couple of press conferences, specifically went after me and criticized me and what I was doing. So what I decided to do was that I decided to spend millions of dollars in Minnesota advertising and recruiting all of his businesses and people to move to South Dakota. And they're coming. They're coming. He's looking at my commercials on his TV, listening on radio stations, billboards all over Minneapolis have my face on them. His buses, his trains, everywhere. It says, South Dakota, we mean business. Come to South Dakota. And they are. Move to South Dakota. We'll take you. So what we did is we took the challenges in front of us, but we're also using it to tell our story. And I think everybody that's moving to South Dakota right now, they're moving because they want freedom. They're moving because they understand the certainty of having leadership that won't make their decisions for them, that won't take their livelihoods away from them, that won't stop their liberties from being able to be. That's America. That's America. South Dakota is the place to have it. But as you go out now and you recognize what's happening in this country, we have a huge opportunity to be able to remind people about what we believe can create for them in their future. So when you go out, of course we're against socialism. Of course we're against their agenda. Just remember that what we're for, that we are going to be way more effective if we're fighting for people rather than if we're fighting against something. So when you go out and you talk to people, of course we do not support what they're doing, the takeover of our government, the socialist agenda. But what we do is we support the American dream. We are for the American dream. We are for somebody being able to create a business. We're for somebody being able to raise their families. We are for somebody being able to go out and to do everything that they wanted to do. So when you leave here and you're talking to people, remember to have that optimistic hope of being for this country, and that we woke up this morning in the United States of America. We are better off than 99% of the other people in this country just because we woke up here today. So go be rock stars, and remember that you are the hope, and that you have to show up, and you have to make sure you're drawing that contrast. So I'm going to quit there. I think I have time for a couple of questions if you guys have some fun and interesting ones. If you have a boring question, we're not going to call on you. Yes?
I'm coming. Wait.
Thank you. My name is Sparsh Kumar, proud American from Dallas, Texas. I had a quick question for you.
Sure.
So, Texas, Florida, they're known for recruiting other business owners from California and New York. Mm-hmm. I know South Dakota right now is picking it up very, very quickly. What actions are you taking? You mentioned it earlier how governors are known as entrepreneurs or business owners of that state. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I have a business in financial services. But what actions are you taking in being the governor to recruit other business owners to your state? Thank you.
Yeah, so he's asking what kind of packages are we putting together? For instance, I'm building buildings for some companies that want to move to South Dakota. I'm giving them land. I'm locking in their workforce costs. I'm training their workforce for the first 2 years that they come, because I'm interested in the people. Everybody in South Dakota works. They're just hard workers. But what they want is a career. So what I'm doing is helping them get into a higher paying job and recruiting those kind of companies to South Dakota so that they can do that. We also are working together to try to do what we can to make sure we're giving them long-term contracts on their energy, utility costs, things like that. Anything we can do to add certainty to a business and show them what a good environment they're going to have is incredible. So in South Dakota, we don't have an income tax. We don't have a corporate tax. We don't have a personal property tax. Really, the only thing we have that funds state government is a 4.5-cent sales tax. So it's pretty hard to give them a tax break when we're so taxed at such a low level. But I can give them buildings, I can give them land, I can train their workforce and show them they get to live with amazing people who love this country. Yes?
Can I hold it? Okay, sorry. So you spoke a little bit about this at the very end, and I had a question about it like the whole time you were talking, and you touched on it. My parents call it intentional optimism, yes, is what you talked about, and how we have to go out there and be the ones with the smile on our faces. Knowing that in society, the liberal and the left are the ones that are angry, like they're hatred, and they hate us. So how do you, having such a hard background, after losing your father, having the whole country turn against you, how do you wake up every morning with that intentional optimism? And how can we, as the young people in America that are happy to be here, that love our country, that are so deeply rooted in success because we are happy, how do we continue having that intentional optimism every day? How do you do it?
Well, So one of the things I think I shared this last year a little bit, but we live in a country that is addicted to being offended. We love to be offended by each other, don't we? Somebody says something, we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they said that. I can't believe they did that. And I'm going to ask you guys to just get over yourselves, okay? Just get over yourself. I mean, somebody told me years ago, they said, people are going to throw out offenses at you all the time. They're going to throw them out there. You're the one who decides if you want to pick it up and carry it around with you, but then you're the one carrying the burden. So I've always just decided that I wasn't going to be offended by what anybody ever said or did. But listen, you guys, it's too important right now for you to continue to write people off. You have people in your life that you've quit talking to, don't you? You think they're hopeless. You think that well, they maybe quit talking to you too. That's possible. But what I'm going to tell you to do is that it's too important. You can't write those people off. You've got to talk to them. But when you go up and you talk to somebody in your family that you have just decided you're never talking politics or government with again, just listen. Everybody in this country feels like nobody's hearing them anymore, that nobody's hearing them. So listen, and then take that emotion and that anger out of the conversation and just give them a couple of facts. But decide not to be offended. It's incredible to me the amount of people who get their feelings hurt every day. You literally can make a decision that you're not going to get your feelings hurt. You can make a decision to wake up and be happy in the morning. You can make a decision to wake up and to be optimistic. That's all in your control, and you do that, you will attract people to the conservative movement. You will attract people to us, and that's what this country really needs.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for making me feel heard.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for making me feel good.
Hey,
what's with all these cowboy hats? It's fantastic.
I know. It's
I
fantastic.
always feel better when there's a cowboy hat in the room. Thank you.
Hey, so my name is Caleb Lawson, and I absolutely love what you're doing in your great, great state. You're truly a fantastic governor, probably the best in the entire country.
Oh.
And I just first off want to thank you for fighting for the American dream. Oh. My great-grandmother on my mom's side came from Cuba with her family, and she built a life here through hard work, and that is the American dream. My grandpa on my dad's side, he was living on government assistance when he was a kid. You know what he said? He said, when I grow up, I am not gonna live like this. I will be successful. Mm-hmm. How? Through hard work. That is the American dream. My family, my mom and my dad, they built up a business, a photography business, and I'm part of today. Yeah. I'm living the American dream. So thank you. Thank you for fighting for the American dream. The American dream's alive. Oh. Thank you. My question for you is, will you run in 2024 for president? Oh. Because we the people, we love you.
I'm not going to answer that question. You did remind me of something, though. So I do want to tell you guys something. And I share this a lot with older people that have children. But I want you guys to remember this, too. Okay, I'm speaking to you three right there. I feel like we are crippling our children in this country. And we are crippling them by doing everything for them. Now, your family obviously went through hard times, and look at what they've done. They came to another country, and they built a dream and a life and changed a whole legacy for your whole family. When you guys go through hard times, that is what makes you problem solvers. That is what gives you the opportunity to learn that you can do things, gives you confidence. So many times you see parents doing everything for their children, and they're crippling them. And they're not allowing them to be somebody who can go forward and do life and be successful. So just know that when you do raise children, that you don't do things for them. Let them do impossible things. Give them impossible challenges to do, because when they do, they will be problem solvers, and they will have the confidence to take on anything that hits them in life and be prepared for it. So that's my little bit of advice for all of you, to be happy when those hard times come. Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we got 6 whole minutes left. Oh, we can take, if we go fast, we can have some fun questions.
So, Governor Noem, John Adams once said, "Liberty once lost is lost forever." And something that my dad taught me, he's taught me that freedom is always purchased with blood. Spiritual freedom with the blood of Christ, and our freedom that we have here in this country with the blood of patriots. I'm from a state, another great state called Idaho. And people talk about how great it is, but even in Idaho, there are shutdowns. Right now, families are not allowed to have more than 10 people at their home for Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner in Idaho, unless we call it a religious activity or political protest. What would you say to us to help us to reclaim our freedom without the cost of blood? And what would you say to the governor or the other governors who have done things like that?
Well, just know this, that every governor has a different situation. Also, I have spent hundreds of hours on the phone with all these governors across the country. So we had these discussions. We had these conversations. We would spend hours and hours talking about what authority we have, what we don't have. I would say a lot of governors I was surprised by because some of them, and I'm not going to say which governors it was, so you're not waiting for a bombshell to drop here, but a lot of them were just scared. And they were scared about the political ramifications of potentially, making a decision and saying that it was wrong and that people lost their lives because of it. So again, it was the fear that drove them to make the decisions that they're making, some of them, which is extremely discouraging. The last thing I would just tell you about this is that this last year was incredibly lonely for me. You could get all the advice in the world from people. They would tell you, well, you could do this, this is what we think we know, this is what we don't know, but nobody wanted to help you make the decision. I had an amazing staff that gave me incredible advice and wisdom, but at the end of the day, I was the one who had to decide. And I think for a lot of people, when it comes to a pandemic and a health crisis, that made it extremely challenging too. So I always try to look at each individual and know that maybe they've got something else going on that's causing them to make different decisions. But I do also know that there is huge consequences for people in some of these states that are living under conditions like you described. It is going to last for a decade or longer, and literally families are losing their entire livelihood because somebody made an arbitrary decision just to take it away and didn't have the authority to do it. So I would encourage folks to move to South Dakota or Florida, but to hang in there. I got asked a lot when I was out doing events for President Trump before the campaign what people should do if they weren't allowed to go to church. And no matter what, you go to church. I think you go to church, right? Don't let somebody tell you you can't go to church. So that's an easy one for me.
Hi, Kristi Noem. My name is Ryan Pence, and
It's a great name.
thank you.
Right.
So really, my story, part of my family came from Italy under Mussolini, and what I am seeing now with the Democrats is the same thing.
Is it?
I'm sick. I'm disgusted. People are getting suspended on Twitter just for sharing their own beliefs. So my question for really the Republicans is, how do we fight back against this mob?
Well, one of the things that I learned when I was making decisions was I couldn't just stand up, call a press conference, and say what my decision was. I had to tell people why I was making that decision. So my press conferences turned into educational meetings, really, with the entire state of South Dakota, sometimes the country. And some of my press conferences turned into speeches. My staff has one press conference that they now call the Freedom Speech. They have another press conference, that's the Liberty Speech, where you talked about this. And I went back and talked about the Constitution, what authorities I had, what I did, and what history has shown us in different times. So don't underestimate the need to continue to educate people, because that is what we've lost. We've lost it in our education system. It's a great opportunity for you to go back to your state and lobby your state legislators to put in more civics classes, more history classes to teach that, so that we don't lose sight of where we've been, so that we don't repeat it. And world history is incredibly important, because that's where you learn what is so remarkable about this country and the fact that it has been safe and secure for so many years.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good.
Hello, thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Brandon. I come from California.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad there. I have a really important question. It's so many people have lost faith in our election system. How can we once again conduct a fair election if the Democrats are going to continue trying to rig each election? And what can each of us do to ensure our elections are fair?
Every single state needs to do election reform, I think, based on the kind of system that I believe it should be, which is much like South Dakota. You got to have an ID to vote. You got to vote on or before Election Day. I believe we have to vote on paper. It's the only way that we can go back and verify somebody's vote is by voting on paper. Listen, in South Dakota, we are a small state. Just in the month of July, I had 16 billion attempts to hack into my state system by 165 countries. So when you talk about that happening to South Dakota, just to our state system, think about how many people have an interest in messing with our elections and the vote tallies and what they can do. So for me, I believe that you have to vote on paper. It's the only way to go back and to make sure that we're verifying how people voted. And you have to have an ID and that you have to vote on or before Election Day. And it has to happen at the state level. Every state, we need to push a movement across this country to go to these legislators and make sure that they're bringing bills that will add some integrity and transparency to their election systems. Yep. Thank you. All right, I think I'm out of time. So listen, everybody, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for letting me come be with you. I want to encourage you to go out and to make sure that we are attracting people to the conservative movement by talking about what we believe, what makes us great. I want to thank you for encouraging me today and for making sure that you're here getting the kind of pep talk that we need so that you can go out and show up and be strong and keep America the amazing place that it always has been. So may God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.